The summer of 1943. The Kursk salient, German tank wedges surge forward, and among them are the newest Tigers, encased in armor that ordinary shells cannot penetrate. Soviet artillerymen call them invincible fortresses. But it is here, in the smoke and flames of the greatest tank battle, that the legend of the Soviet Tiger Hunters is born. Self-propelled artillery units that managed to find an answer to a seemingly insurmountable challenge. The confrontation between Soviet and German armored vehicles is not just a clash of metal and firepower. It is a story of technological race, engineering thought, and human courage. When the first heavy German tanks appeared on the Eastern Front, they caused a shock. Existing anti-tank weapons proved powerless. A new solution was needed, and it was found in the form of self-propelled artillery units. From the light, almost defenseless Su-76, nicknamed bare-assed Ferdinands by the soldiers, to the formidable ISU-152, which earned the proud name Beast Slayer. The path of evolution of Soviet self-propelled guns was rapid and dramatic. This is a story of how Soviet designers, often in the conditions of evacuated factories, created weapons capable of stopping German tank armadas. Boris Dumenko was born in 1888 in the Khutor Kazachi Komutets of the Stanitsa Velikoknyazhskaya, Don Host Oblast, into a family of hereditary Cossacks. From childhood, he absorbed the traditions of the Free Cossacks, where horsemanship was valued above all else. His father, Moki Nikitich, a simple Cossack plowman, accustomed his son from an early age to hard peasant labor and military skills. Boris grew up a strong, quick-witted young man with an independent character, so typical of Don Cossacks. He received his initial education in a parish school, but his formal schooling ended there. Necessity forced him to start working early. At the age of 25, Dumenko was called up for active service in the Tsarist army. The First World War found him in the ranks of the 9th Don Cossack Regiment. On the fronts of the Great War, Boris proved himself to be a brave warrior and a skilled fighter. In 4 years of battles, he rose to the rank of Wachtmeister, the highest rank for enlisted cavalrymen, and was awarded 4 St. George's Crosses, which testified to his exceptional valor. However, the revolutionary events of 1917 changed the fate of many, including Boris Dumenko. Returning from the front to the Don, he found himself at the epicenter of political contradictions tearing the Cossacks apart. Some Cossacks supported the White Movement, but many, especially from the poorer strata, to which Dumenko also belonged, joined the Bolsheviks. They were attracted by slogans of fair land distribution and equality of all estates. In the spring of 1918, Dumenko organized the first Red Cavalry detachment from frontline Cossacks like himself. This small detachment of 120 sabres became the embryo of the future formidable cavalry formations of the Red Army. Among his first comrades in arms was Semyon Budyonny, who served under Dumenko and was then his closest assistant. Boris Mokievich quickly proved himself not only a brave warrior, but also a talented organizer and commander. He possessed a natural military instinct, the ability to make unconventional decisions and to lead people. His authority among the fighters was indisputable. The Cossacks trusted their commander, seeing in him not a superior appointed from above, but someone from their own midst, understanding their needs and aspirations. In the autumn of 1942, the first truly mass-produced Soviet self-propelled gun, the Su-76, appeared on the battlefields. This light self-propelled artillery mount became a real breakthrough in the development of domestic armored vehicles, although it evoked contradictory feelings among frontline soldiers. The Su-76 was created on the basis of the light tank T-70, using its running gear, transmission, and engine. An open top and open rear fighting compartment with a 76mm ZIS-3 gun was installed on the chassis, the same gun that had already proven itself well as a divisional gun. It was this open design that gave rise to the famous nickname Bare-assed Ferdinand. Soldiers' humor aptly highlighted the main drawback of the machine: the crew's poor protection. Armor only 10 to 35 millimeters thick, protected only from bullets and shrapnel, and the lack of a roof made the crew vulnerable to mortar fire and grenades. In winter, the artillerymen froze. In summer, they suffered from the heat, and in the rain, the fighting compartment was filled with water. The first models of the Su-76 had serious technical flaws. Two GAZ-202 engines, installed in parallel, worked asynchronously, causing strong vibration that destroyed the hull's welds. Because of this, the self-propelled guns often broke down right on the march. Frontline soldiers nicknamed them a common grave for four by the number of crew members. But the designers quickly corrected the main shortcomings. In the modernized version, the Su-76M, a more powerful engine was installed, the layout of the fighting compartment was improved, and the armor was strengthened. The machine became much more reliable while retaining its main advantages: high mobility and a sufficiently powerful gun. The 76mm ZIS-3 gun was capable of penetrating the armor of medium German tanks PZ-KPFW-4 and Stug-3 assault guns from a distance of up to 800 meters. This was sufficient for successful engagement with most German armored vehicles of that time. However, against Tigers with their thick armor, the Su-76 was practically powerless. To defeat these heavy tanks, it was necessary to approach at an unacceptably close distance or attack from the flank. Despite its limitations, the Su-76 became the most mass-produced Soviet self-propelled gun. Over 14,000 of these vehicles were produced during the war years. They were used to support infantry, fight enemy fortifications, and, in favorable circumstances, destroy enemy armored vehicles. Su-76 crews developed a special tactic for fighting German tanks. Using their small size and good maneuverability, the self-propelled guns operated from ambushes, aiming to attack the enemy from the flank or rear. Often, several vehicles coordinated their actions, distracting the attention of German tank crews and allowing comrades to get into a favorable firing position. The experience of using the Su-76 showed that the concept of a light self-propelled gun was viable, but more powerful armament was needed for effective combat against the latest German tanks. This understanding became an important step in the evolution of Soviet SPGs and led to the creation of the next generation of self-propelled guns capable of confronting Tigers on equal terms. By the beginning of 1943, the situation on the fronts had fundamentally changed. After the Battle of Stalingrad, the strategic initiative began to shift to the Red Army. But the German command was preparing a powerful counterattack, concentrating its best tank divisions near the Kursk bulge. Among them were the newest Tigers and Ferdinands, against which Soviet troops had no effective anti-tank weapons. Already at the end of 1942, the State Defense Committee set the task of creating a heavy, self-propelled gun in the shortest possible time, capable of fighting the newest German tanks. The Design Bureau of the Chelyabinsk tractor plant, under the leadership of Joseph Kotin, proposed installing a powerful 152mm ML-20 gun on the chassis of the KV-1S heavy tank. Thus, the Su-152 self-propelled gun was born. The development was carried out in incredibly compressed time frames. From the start of design to the rollout of the first vehicle from the conveyor belt, only 52 days passed. On January 24, 1943, the first prototype was ready, and serial production began in February. The Su-152 was a true monster. The ML-20 howitzer gun, originally designed as a core artillery piece, was installed in a spacious casemate with powerful armor. The frontal armor reached 75 millimeters, providing reliable protection for the crew. The weight of the self-propelled gun was 45 tons, a true combat fortress on tracks. But the main trump card of the Su-152 was, of course, its gun. A 152 millimeter shell weighing 40 kilograms, upon hitting a Tiger, did not just penetrate its armor, it literally tore the turret from the hull. Even if the shell did not penetrate the armor, the powerful high explosive effect led to severe damage to the tank's internal systems, concussions, and the death of the crew. The Su-152 received its baptism of fire in the summer of 1943 at the Kursk Bulge. Here, the first legendary clashes with Tigers and Ferdinands occurred. On July 5th, on the first day of the German offensive, the self-propelled guns of the 234th Self-Propelled Artillery Regiment engaged an enemy tank group. One of the most famous episodes occurred near the village of Toploy, where 4 Su-152s met a group of 8 Tigers. In a short battle, Soviet self-propelled gunners destroyed 3 German tanks without losing a single vehicle. It was after this battle that the Su-152 earned the nickname Beast Slayer. German tankers quickly realized the mortal danger posed by the new Soviet self-propelled guns. In their reports, they noted, "The Russians have used a new anti-tank weapon of monstrous power. The shell hits our tanks like a hammer. Even if the armor is not penetrated, the crew dies from the shock wave." The psychological effect of using the Su-152 was enormous. German crews were terrified of encountering the Russian monsters, as they called them. There are known cases where Wehrmacht tank units refused to go on the attack after learning of the presence of beast slayers in the positions. Despite its impressive combat qualities, the Su-152 also had drawbacks. The low rate of fire, no more than 2 rounds per minute, and a limited ammunition load of 20 shells required special combat tactics from the crews. The self-propelled gunners tried to operate from ambushes, opening fire from a distance of no more than 500 to 700 meters to guarantee hitting the target with the first shot. By mid-1943, it became clear that the war was entering a new phase. The German command was actively saturating the front with new tanks. Panthers with powerful 75mm guns and reinforced frontal armor. The T-34 medium tanks, which formed the backbone of Soviet armored forces, encountered serious difficulties in combating these machines. The Soviet designer's answer was the Su-85 self-propelled gun. The idea behind its creation was exceedingly simple: to install a powerful 85mm D5S gun on the proven T-34 tank chassis. Such a solution allowed for rapid mass production and provided the front with an effective means of combating the newest German tanks. In August 1943, the first Su-85s rolled off the assembly line at the Ural Heavy Machine Building Plant. The machine proved successful. Its low silhouette made it difficult to spot on the battlefield, and its 85mm gun could engage, quote, from a distance of up to 1,000 meters. 45mm frontal armor provided reliable protection against fire from small-caliber anti-tank guns. Quote 2 recalled Nikolai Vasiliev. commander of a self-propelled artillery regiment. The tactics for employing medium self-propelled guns differed significantly from the use of heavy. While the Su-152 operated primarily from deep ambushes, the Su-85 could effectively support advancing tanks and infantry. Thanks to its good mobility, inherited from the T-34, they quickly changed positions, firing from the flank at German tanks. However, military thought did not stand still. By early 1944, it became clear that the 85mm gun no longer ensured confident penetration of the frontal armor of the newest German tanks from a comfortable distance. A more powerful weapon was needed. The answer was the Su-100, a self-propelled gun armed with a 100mm D-10S gun. This weapon had exceptional ballistic characteristics. An armor-piercing shell fired from it penetrated 100mm armor from a distance of 1,500 meters, an impressive result that allowed Soviet self-propelled gunners to fight on their own terms. The first Su-100s appeared at the front in the autumn of 1944 and immediately proved their effectiveness. The advantages of the new machine were particularly evident during the Vistula-Oder operation, when self-propelled artillery regiments armed with Su-100s successfully countered the counterattacks of German tank groups. Frontline soldiers highly valued the firepower of the Su-100, but also noted the machine's shortcomings. The increased weight led to a decrease in mobility, and the combat compartment remained cramped for a crew of 4. The Su-100 was as cramped as a sardine can, recalled gunner Mikhail Kravtsov. But when you see your shell blowing off a Panther's turret, you forget about all the inconveniences. The Su-85 and Su-100 medium self-propelled guns became an important link in the evolution of Soviet anti-tank weapons. They filled the niche between the light Su-76 and the heavy Beast killers, providing the necessary balance between firepower, protection, and mobility. It was these qualities that made them indispensable in the final stage of the war, when Soviet troops conducted large-scale offensive operations. By the beginning of 1944, the Soviet command faced the need to modernize its heavy self-propelled artillery. The Su-152, despite its outstanding combat qualities, had a significant drawback: the outdated KV tank chassis, whose production was already ceasing. It was replaced by the more modern and technologically advanced IS, Iosif Stalin, heavy tank, which became the basis for a new generation of self-propelled guns. On January 24, 1944, the ISU-152 was adopted by the Red Army, a self-propelled gun that inherited its predecessor's formidable 152mm ML-20 gun, but received a more advanced chassis and enhanced armor, recalled Ivan Dremov, commander of a self-propelled artillery regiment. The ISU-152 had frontal hull armor up to 90mm thick, making it virtually invulnerable to most German anti-tank weapons. The improved chassis provided better cross-country capability and maneuverability, and the more spacious fighting compartment created comfortable conditions for the crew. The main weapon of the ISU-152, like its predecessor, remained the ML-20 howitzer gun. This .2, as artillerymen called it, fired 40-kilogram shells capable of solving a wide range of combat tasks. An armor-piercing high-explosive shell could penetrate armor up to 120 millimeters thick. And when hitting a .3 or .4, it often tore off the turret or destroyed the hull. A special role in the effectiveness of the ISU-152 was played by the so-called .5. a powerful shock wave generated by the explosion of a shell. Even if the German tank's armor was not penetrated, the crews suffered severe concussions, and internal equipment failed. German tankers feared this effect no less than a direct penetration. In the spring of 1944, ISU-152s were massively deployed to the front, and soon the first documented cases of Tiger and Panther destruction appeared. Particularly illustrative was the battle near Kovel, where a battery of 3 ISU-152s destroyed 5 Tigers and 2 Ferdinands, without losing a single vehicle. During the Lvov-Sandomierz offensive, the self-propelled gun crews encountered the latest German King Tiger tanks. These 60-ton giants with 150mm frontal armor were considered invulnerable. However, even they could not withstand the power of the Beast Killer. In parallel with the ISU-152, the Soviet command decided to create another heavy self-propelled gun based on the IS tank. In December 1943, the ISU-122 was adopted, armed with a 122mm A-19 gun. This vehicle became an ideal complement to its more heavily armed sister, offering a different approach to fighting German tanks, through accuracy and armor penetration rather than the crushing power of high explosive action. If the ISU-152 was designed to destroy enemy tanks with powerful high explosive impact, the ISU-122 relied on high accuracy and armor penetration of armor-piercing shells. The 122mm gun had better ballistics and a higher rate of fire, up to 3 to 4 rounds per minute compared to 2 for the ISU-152. When we received the ISU-122, we immediately appreciated its advantages, recalled Georgy Samsonov, commander of a self-propelled artillery regiment. It was easier for the gunner to work with this weapon. The aiming range reached 2,000 meters, which allowed us to open fire first without letting German tanks approach effective firing range. An armor-piercing shell weighing 25 kilograms fired from the A-19 gun at a distance of 1,000 meters penetrated armor up to 160 millimeters thick. This was enough to hit the frontal armor of any German tank, including the King Tiger. At the same time, unlike the ISU-152, the target was hit not by the high explosive effect, but by direct armor penetration, with minimal damage to surrounding objects. This difference in the nature of the shell's impact determined the tactical roles of the two self-propelled guns. ISU-152s were more often used to support infantry and fight enemy fortifications, where the high explosive effect of the shell was an advantage. ISU-122s, thanks to their high accuracy and armor penetration, became specialized tank destroyers, operating at medium and long ranges. Each weapon has its own merits, explained Vasily Petrov, chief of staff of a self-propelled artillery brigade. The 152mm is like a sledgehammer. If it hits, the enemy is guaranteed to be out of action. The 122mm is a scalpel. It requires accuracy, but when used correctly, it is no less effective. ISU-122 crews quickly appreciated the advantages of their vehicles. A larger ammunition load, 30 shells compared to 20 for the ISU-152, allowed for longer combat. The lighter weight of the shells made the loader's job easier, which was critically important in an intense tank battle. During the Vistula Oder operation, a self-propelled artillery regiment armed with ISU-122s destroyed 21 German tanks, including 7 Tigers and Panthers. At the same time, their own losses amounted to only 3 vehicles. This success was achieved due to accurate fire and competent tactics. The self-propelled guns operated from concealed positions, using their advantage in firing range. The evolution of the tactics for employing Soviet self-propelled artillery units, SAUs, became one of the key factors that ensured the Red Army's superiority in the final stage of the war. If, at the beginning of their combat path, SAUs were primarily used as a means of infantry fire support, by mid-1944 they had transformed into specialized tank hunters, operating according to specific tactical schemes. The most important organizational decision was the formation of separate self-propelled artillery regiments and brigades. According to the Shtatnoye Raspisanye staffing table, adopted in December 1943, a heavy self-propelled artillery regiment included 21 vehicles, 12 ISU-152 and 9 ISU-122. This combination provided an optimal balance of firepower and maneuverability. Our self-propelled regiments became a true terror for German tank formations, recalled Marshal of Armored Forces Pavel Rotmistrov. We developed a special tactic for their use, which allowed us to maximize the advantages of our vehicles and mitigate their shortcomings. The essence of this tactic lay in an echeloned defense formation. The first echelon consisted of Su-85 and Su-100, which, thanks to their high mobility, could quickly change positions. They fired at German tanks from a distance of 800 to 1,000 meters, aiming to hit tracks and sides. If the enemy broke through the first line, heavy ISUs, positioned on the second line of defense, entered the battle. During offensive operations, self-propelled guns acted differently. Heavy ISU-152 and ISU-122 moved in the first echelon along with the infantry, suppressing firing points and destroying enemy fortifications. Medium Su-85 and Su-100 formed a mobile reserve, ready to repel counterattacks by German tanks. We learned to operate in close cooperation with the infantry, said Stepan Krivoshein, commander of a self-propelled artillery regiment. The infantry protected us from enemy anti-tank crews, and we provided them with fire support. It was a true symbiosis, without which it would have been impossible to break through the German defense. Special attention was paid to the interaction of self-propelled guns with aviation. Il-2 attack aircraft often struck identified positions of German anti-tank guns before the SAU attack, which significantly reduced losses. In turn, self-propelled guns supported advancing tank units with fire, destroying identified enemy firing points. By early 1945, Soviet command had developed an entire system of anti-tank ambushes using SAUs. Self-propelled guns were camouflaged in likely directions of German tank movement, often on the flanks of main roads. Specially assigned light tanks or armored vehicles played the role of bait, luring German tanks under fire from camouflaged SAUs. The Germans were unable to find an effective countermeasure to our self-propelled guns until the very last days of the war, noted General Katukov. They especially feared the ISU-152. There was even an order to German tank units to avoid direct engagement with these vehicles and to attack them only with superior forces. The tactics for employing SAUs were constantly improved based on combat experience. If at the beginning of the war, self-propelled guns operated primarily from ambushes, by its end, they became an integral part of offensive operations, acting in close cooperation with tanks, infantry, and aviation. It was precisely this complex application of all branches of service that ensured the success of Soviet offensive operations in 1944, 45, and the final defeat of German troops. Behind every self-propelled gun stood living people, the crews, upon whose skill, courage, and training the outcome of battle depended. The training of Soviet SPG crews was a unique task, demanding special skills and psychological resilience, especially when facing the formidable German Tigers. The first thing I felt when I saw a Tiger in the sights of my Su-85 was a chill inside, recalled gunner Alexander Gorakov. We all knew that this behemoth could penetrate our armor from 2 kilometers, while we needed to get within 800 meters to have a chance of hitting its side. This was not for the faint of heart. The training of SPG crews included not only technical instruction, but also psychological hardening. Commanders of self-propelled artillery regiments conducted special sessions where they analyzed German tank tactics and the Tigers' weak points. This knowledge instilled confidence and reduced psychological pressure before battle. We were taught that the Tiger is just a machine, not a mythical monster, said ISU 152 Commander Nikolai Burtsev. It has vulnerable spots, its sides, rear, and running gear. The main thing is to keep cool and wait for the right moment to fire. The experience of veterans who had already accounted for destroyed German tanks was especially valued. Their stories were passed down by word of mouth, becoming unique training manuals for newcomers. For example, the story of Lieutenant Vasily Udalov's crew, who, in their ISU 122, knocked out 3 Tigers in a single battle near Kovel, became legendary in self-propelled artillery units. We let the first Tiger get within 900 meters, Udalov told young SPG operators. I ordered the gunner to aim at the lower part of the side, where the armor is thinner. The first shot, and the German tank spun in place, losing a track. The second shell penetrated the side, and the Tiger caught fire. The others tried to outflank us, but we managed to turn our SPG and meet them with fire. SPG crews developed a special style of interaction where each team member sensed the others without words. In the cramped fighting compartment, filled with gunpowder smoke and the roar of gunfire, this was vitally important. The commander gave brief orders, the gunner worked the sights, the loader supplied shells, and the driver-mechanic maneuvered the vehicle, evading return fire. In battle, there's no time for reflection, recalled Su-100 driver-mechanic Pyotr Klimov. When the commander shouts, "Right! Behind the hut!" you don't think, you act. The lives of the entire crew depend on your reaction. It was especially tough for the crews of the light Su-76s, which, due to their weak armor and armament, could not directly confront Tigers. They had to employ wolf-pack tactics. Several SPGs attacked a single heavy tank from different directions, aiming to hit its side or tracks. We were like David against Goliath, said Su-76 platoon commander Igor Levchenko. But we had an advantage in maneuverability and numbers. While one SPG distracted the Tiger, others moved in from the flanks and hit its sides and tracks. For the crews of the heavy ISU 152, the psychological burden was different. They knew their vehicle could destroy any German tank, but its slowness and low rate of fire demanded special endurance. Every shot had to be accurate, as reloading the 152mm gun took up to 30 seconds, an eternity in a tank battle. When you see a Tiger in the sights, you want to shoot immediately, shared ISU 152 gunner Mikhail Frolov. But I always told the young ones, don't rush, breathe out, wait until the target is perfect. One accurate shot is worth 5 hasty ones. The legacy of Soviet self-propelled artillery units, these formidable Tiger hunters, extends far beyond the war years. The experience of their creation and combat deployment became an invaluable foundation for the post-war development of armored vehicles, not only in the USSR, but throughout the world. Statistics speak for themselves. By the end of the war, self-propelled artillery units had accounted for over 5,000 destroyed German tanks, including about 800 Tigers, 600 Panthers, and 20 King Tigers. The ISU-152 proved most effective in combating heavy German tanks. For every lost self-propelled gun, an average of 2 Tigers were destroyed. The Su-100, thanks to the high accuracy of its 100mm gun, demonstrated a better ratio against Panthers, about 2.5 knocked-out German tanks for every lost self-propelled gun. Our self-propelled guns became a true technological breakthrough, noted chief designer J. Cotten in his post-war memoirs. We created versatile combat vehicles capable of solving a wide range of tasks, from infantry support to combating heavy enemy tanks. The main technological lesson learned from the experience of creating Soviet SPGs was the importance of balancing firepower, protection, and mobility. Designers understood that there was no ideal universal machine. A line of specialized self-propelled guns was needed for various combat missions. The second most important lesson concerned the layout of combat vehicles. The placement of the fighting compartment in the rear, adopted on Soviet SPGs, provided better crew protection and more rational use of internal space. This principle was subsequently used in the creation of post-war self-propelled artillery units in many countries. From a tactical point of view, the experience of using SPGs in the Great Patriotic War led to a re-evaluation of the role of self-propelled artillery in combat operations. If, at the beginning of the war, self-propelled guns were regarded primarily as a means of infantry support, by its end, they transformed into an independent branch of service, capable of solving a wide range of tasks. Self-propelled artillery became an integral part of tank and mechanized formations, wrote Marshal of Armored Forces Rotmistrov in his works. Its main advantages were the ability to fire from covered positions, better protection for crews compared to towed guns, and the ability to quickly change positions. Post-war development of self-propelled artillery followed two main directions. The first was the creation of specialized anti-tank SPGs with powerful guns capable of hitting any enemy armored vehicles. The second was the development of self-propelled howitzers for fire support of troops. It was the Soviet ISU-152S that became the prototype of modern heavy self-propelled howitzers, such as Msta and Koalitsia, and the concept of the Su-100 found its continuation in post-war tank destroyers with smoothbore guns. The evolution of Soviet SPGs from the first imperfect models to formidable beast hunters clearly demonstrates the ability of the domestic design school and industry to solve the most complex technical problems in the shortest possible time. Over 3 years of war, several generations of self-propelled guns were created, each of which surpassed the previous one in combat characteristics. Soviet self-propelled units became one of the key factors in the victory in the Great Patriotic War. They provided superiority on the battlefield, allowed minimizing losses in personnel and equipment during the breakthrough of fortified enemy lines. The experience of creating and applying these formidable machines has not lost its relevance even today. Modern armored vehicle designers continue to use the principles laid down by the creators of Soviet Tiger hunters, adapting them to new technological capabilities and the demands of the time.